morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm with you every morning from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., Monday through Friday. Saturday morning, we do a 3-hour show from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. And Monday through Friday, our show repeats 8 to 9 p.m. right here on 107.1. Hope that you'll join us either in the morning or in the evening. If you can't catch us in the morning and you can't catch us in the evening, you can always catch us on YouTube, where we post every show that we do live up on, or live video shot of that up on our YouTube channel. And that is found at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. You can also find us every day on Facebook, where we post up interesting news articles, stories, comments from our readers and our listeners. That is facebook.com/America's Voice Now. We also have our own site, as you know. That site is americasvoicenow.org. And if you keep hearing the repeated refrain of America's Voice Now, that's because we make it simple. You can find us on the web. Just remember americasvoicenow.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. And on YouTube at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. We can't make it any easier, but we can provide you with information, education, information that helps you to take action against the basic removal of our rights, liberties, and the destruction of our republic. And we educate you and inform you so that you can get motivated to take action where it's necessary. Today is Wednesday, and that means today is Wake Up Wednesday. This is not just any Wednesday, it's Wake Up Wednesday. And Wake Up Wednesday means today is time and part for you to take action. We are going to talk this morning about 2 areas in which you can take immediate action and make a difference right here, right now, today. Why and how? Well, the why is real simple. We have 2 bills that are currently working their way through Congress, and I'm going to give you some contact information, and I'm going to give you the information that you need in order to be able to make a difference here. The why is because if you don't, no one will. And the how is via your telephone. We all have one, or at least have access to one. And so we're going to make this really simple. I'm going to give you the information that you need, and then you can pick up the telephone and do your part as an active participant in our republic, get your voice heard, make a difference, and I'm going to show you why that matters. Over the course of the last week and a half, we did last week we did a Wake Up Wednesday in reference to the Monsanto Preservation Act, as we're calling it. Now that is a replication of the federal Monsanto Protection Act, and the reason that this is important is because Monsanto is essentially making sure that they own the rights to all of our food. That can't bode well for America. Yet we have a representative in the House here in Missouri, Jason Smith, who's put together a bill which would essentially replicate the federal bill and give Monsanto protection and other genetic modification and genetic engineering organizations protection as a constitutional amendment. Now, we had so many phone calls, so many calls to senators, Congress people, and to Jason Smith's office last week on Wake Up Wednesday that we actually got them to make some changes to the legislation language. This is on SJR 711. That's House Joint Resolution 711, or 7 and 11. Here's the deal. We have almost won this fight. And we've done it because you folks picked up the telephone and made a difference. So I never want to hear from anyone ever again, oh, calling my senator doesn't matter. It does. And I'm going to prove it to you right now. They actually took out the part that offers Monsanto protection. Yes, it worked. Now they need to add in one clause, and we're going to tell you what that is. And I want you to write this down because we want this exact wording in there. We want this revised wording to go into the body of this thing so that we have an opportunity to basically make sure that we are protected as a constitutional limitation and not Monsanto. We do know that Monsanto's got very deep pockets, and we know that they are making an enormous amount of headway in trying to get their own personal or corporate agenda passed. And so our goal is going to be to fight back on this tooth and nail. And here's the phrase that we want to add into this joint resolution. And here's the approach we need to take. If they will not put this language into this bill, we will defeat it lock, stock, and barrel, and it will never come up for a constitutional amendment vote. Never. If they don't change the language and protect the citizenry of Missouri, which is the only job government has, then we will make sure that this bill never sees the light of the ballot box. This is a ballot box initiative because what this will do is it will add a constitutional amendment to the ballot that will come up in November. And our goal will be to defeat this thing lock, stock, and barrel if they will not change the language to protect us, the citizenry of this state. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pick up the telephone today, and we're going to call our House representatives, and we're going to call our Senate representatives, and we're going to tell them, this is in the state now, this is not federal, and we're going to tell them that unless this language makes it into the bill, it's dead on arrival. Here's the language that we want to use, and I want you to write this down. So I'm going to give it to you once or twice so that you can start taking some quick notes. The phrase that we want to have added in here is, or interferes with the rights of farmers to engage in direct commerce with consumers. Okay? Now, that may sound like a small thing to you. I'm going to repeat it again, so if you didn't get the whole thing, that's okay. Interferes, or let me start again. Or interferes. This is a clause that comes after a section which says, no state law shall be enacted which abridges the right of farmers and ranchers to employ livestock production and ranching practices, comma, and here's where the new language goes, or interferes with the rights of farmers to engage in direct commerce with consumers. Okay? Here's the reason why. We don't want anything to stand between a farmer who wants to sell his produce and or the product of his work and labor, including livestock, directly to consumers without having a middleman involved, without having to go through some kind of a... Think of it this way. Imagine if the USDA came forth, or the FDA, and came forth and said, like a gun transaction, every piece of produce or livestock that's sold has to go through a USDA-approved seller. Mark my words, that's exactly the goal that they're trying to accomplish. And so our job is to make sure that we correct that and we don't allow that to go down. When we come back from here, from this break, I'm going to give you the numbers to call. I'm going to give you that phrase again. So if you didn't get all of it, you still have time to write it down. And we will discuss the remainder of the other goal for Wake Up Wednesday, which is going to be the Firearms Protection Act, or the Firearms Protection Act, which was just passed in Kansas and we're still waiting for here in Missouri. I got to wonder why. Senators and congressmen, we want this bill passed. And we're not asking you, we're demanding it. We'll be right back.
Last time on the Dennis Miller Show.
At an event thrown by the website Politico, Bill Gates said, quote, some days I wish we had a system like the UK, quote, to give Obama more power. Yeah, some days I wish Windows worked like Apple. How's that, Billy Boy? These guys are fetishistic. He's in the, you know, he wants it to work more like the UK. He wants to see Obama padding around in one of those powdered
Weekdays
wigs.
from 9 till noon, it's the Dennis Miller Zone on the Ozarks Best News Talk 107.1.
Hi, it's Hugh Hewitt on the next Hugh Hewitt Show. Joe Kernan of CNBC's Squawk Box joins me to talk about how long and how far this rally can go and whether or not Apple's ever going to get back on board, though they had a wonderful day on Friday. And I'll be joined by Congressman Tom Cotton, around whom considerable swirl continues to spin because he might be running for the United States Senate.
Sundays from 6 till 7, following Money Talk with Bob Brinker, it's the Weekend Journal with Hugh Hewitt on the Ozarks Best News Talk 107.1.
We're back. All right. Let's understand the importance of what we're talking about here. We know that Monsanto is an agri-tyrant. We know that their genetically modified products are dangerous to us, not in the theoretical, but in the actual and practical. How do we know that? Well, I'm even going to give you an example of it, because I think it's important that you recognize that we're not the only ones speaking out about what's going on here. There are a group, there are quite a series of new leaks that are coming out about how Monsanto is actually dangerous to us as a nation with their genetically modified products. And so, and I'm going to tell you something. One of the articles that was written about this was actually written by, you won't believe it, the New York Times. The New York Times has actually got an article out about how Monsanto is dangerous, and even they're slamming it. I had it up on Facebook, and I'm not quite sure why it's been taken down, which I find extraordinarily frustrating. Facebook has a habit of doing that. If they don't like something that's up on Facebook, they actually remove it. And you want to talk about censorship? There it is, folks. I can't tell you how many times I've posted something up on the web on Facebook, and literally turned around 40 minutes later or an hour later and found that it's missing. And so I got to tell you, I am very, very unhappy about the fact that this particular article is missing, because I posted it up there for a reason. I wanted you folks to see that the New York Times, one of the most liberal rags in America, is actually clearly stating that Monsanto is a danger to us as a nation. So I tell you, it's very, very frustrating when that occurs. And it's not happened once. It's not happened twice. It's happened many, many, many times. So it's pretty frustrating, and I will try to find that article for you, and I will either repost it or I will actually discuss it with you. Hang on a second. I think I just found it. Here we go. Even the New York Times is now rejecting the Monsanto GMO science. This is from John Rappaport. He's a writer for InfoWars. And here's his comment. This isn't a leak. It isn't a timid flow. It's a flood. I'm talking about about the criticism of Monsanto's so-called science of genetically engineered food. For the past 20 years, independent researchers have been attacking Monsanto science in various ways. And finally, even the New York Times has now joined the crowd. So what it really says to you is that we have a major problem with our food supply here in our country. And who's leading the charge of that is Monsanto. They're not alone, by the way. DuPont is out there, and there's a host of other genetic engineering food product groups. But the simple truth is that Monsanto is they're the Microsoft or the Walmart of this genetically modified and genetically enhanced and genetically engineered product lines. And they're doing it because from their perspective, it's a profitability issue. When they put genetically modified products together, they charge, or they patent them first and foremost, and then they charge royalties on this issue. And that way, every farmer who's actually going to utilize these products is forced and required to pay royalties on this. And what they don't care about is the fact that genetically modified products and genetically engineered products are dangerous to our health. There is a lot of science that proves that it's dangerous, and there's a lot of science out there that says we're not quite sure of the results, but that doesn't mean that it's not dangerous. So the only people who are saying it's not are those who have a vested interest in the genetically modified materials. So here's the deal. We have have made an impact already on this Monsanto Protection Act, this state-based Monsanto Protection Act. And our goal is to either change it so that the language is what we want it to be and offers protection for Missouri residents and Missouri citizens, and offers us the further protection of being able to forever be protected for the ability for us to be able, for farmers to be able to work directly with the consumer population, or we're just going to defeat the bill. If we cannot get the right language in there, we will defeat it. I've asked Doreen Hannes to join us this morning. Doreen is the purveyor of truthfarmer.com, and she is the one of the lead fighters here in this front. And so I've asked Doreen to join with us this morning so that you folks would have an opportunity to hear direct from her impression of this. Doreen, are you with us?
I am here, Mike.
Thanks so much for taking time out of your Wednesday. I know that your time is valuable, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Your time is valuable as well, as is all of our time.
Yeah, but I'm here. So I'm here anyway. So, all right, so just kind of give us the long and the short of this thing. This sub-language or the subtext of this is actually in the actual bill. It's not the language that is going to be part of the actual amendment, but this is in the prologue of the bill.
Right. They've changed the language, and effectively, the way that I see it, they changed the language really as a point of deception here. What they did is, everybody must remember, they had modern and traditional and agricultural technology. Well, they removed all of those adjectives, and now it's all in one basket, and it says, no state law shall be enacted which abridges the right of farmers and ranchers to engage in agricultural production and ranching practices.
Right.
Okay. So instead of having any kind of a differentiation between the different types of one type of agriculture and another type agribusiness.
Right. New versus modern, or modern versus traditional.
Right. So they lumped them all together. And then they also did allow for certain counties have planning and zoning, and some northern counties within our state have passed health ordinances to constrain the spread of CAFOs. Okay? So they allow in this new language to, it says this, nothing in this section shall be interpreted to abrogate the authority of political subdivisions to execute powers vested therein by the laws of the state of Missouri. So, in other words, for us down here, which we're predominantly third-class counties with no planning and zoning, we would have to implement planning and zoning to halt the spread of CAFOs or whatever future, quote-unquote, farming with a PH on it, abrogation might occur, okay? I mean, they're ensconcing in our Constitution forever the right to engage in any and all agricultural farming processes.
Okay, hang on right there. First of all, explain, I think, for the benefit of the audience, exactly what CAFOs are.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I speak in acronyms sometimes.
No, and that's okay, but I want to make sure that they understand it, so that when they have a discussion with their House of Representatives member or their Senate staff and aides, that they actually are confident enough in the topic that they're talking about so that they can accurately portray their idea or their thoughts.
Okay, well, CAFOs are concentrated animal feeding operations, and there are different breakdowns for different species, And typically, what we've got are CAFOs in the hog sector and in the chicken sector. In our area, we have very few CAFOs in the cattle sector. Those are like the feedlots, and they are regulated. But they're really just, I mean, it's industrial farming. You know, you've got 10,000 chickens in one broiler house, or you've got, 400 hogs on 10 acres, that kind of thing.
Sure.
So, those are what CAFOs are. And predominantly in agriculture, the CAFOs are vertically integrated. And what that means is the corporation owns the animals, and they provide the feed. The people who are the serfs, who provide the land, have to pay for the buildings and do whatever these corporations want them to do, and they just get like a cut for feeding the animals and to tend them. But they have no control over the management of the operation.
It sounds like the old days of fiefdoms, where the lord of the manor would give you a small plot of land. And as long as you did what he told you to do, you were able to grow and keep a little bit for your own family, but the rest of it you had to turn back over to the duke or the.
Yeah, it's definitely a serfdom-oriented mentality, and what's happening is because of the USDA's complete lack of enforcing the antitrust measures that we have in position, like Packers and Stockyards Act, for instance. Mm-hmm. There's a massive amount of consolidation in agriculture, and you've got people who are basically, seriously, they are being exploited by these corporations. And, of course, there are continued contraction in those corporations because the bigger ones buy up the littler ones, okay? So we're going to end up with one farm, or maybe 12 farms across the whole U.S. that are all regulated and controlled and have this revolving door between the headships and the two agencies that are concerned with food at the federal level. And it's not really food that they are concerned with. They're concerned with control of our ability to access real food.
Right. Access food outside of the channels which they've put forth for us.
Right.
That's the real issue here, folks, is it's all about control. And the goal is for them to have absolute and total control of the food supply so that you are prohibited from getting food outside of the channels which they've set up for you.
Right. So what I would like for everybody to understand about just this particular bill here, this SJR 7 and 11, which also has its Senate companion, that's HJR 7 and 11 and SJR22, is that we already have the right to farm and ranch in Missouri. We've got right to farm acts that have passed previously. What we do not have in Missouri is carte blanche for CAFOs to just pop up all over the place like they did in Iowa. Okay? So that's what we're trying, one of the things that we're trying to prohibit by going against this proposed constitutional amendment. And the other thing is, they have this clause in here about no state law shall be enacted unless approved by the General Assembly.
Right. What a ridiculous oxymoron. No state law would be approved without approval of the Assembly anyway.
Well, what they're trying to get to here is their false argument that they're trying to head off HSUS, that's Humane Society of the United States, regulation via the ballot initiative process in Missouri.
But why doesn't the bill ever even address that or say that?
Because that's not what they really want it to do. That's just their selling point.
I got you. Can you hang on for this break?
Sure, Mike.
When you come back, I'd like to. I have to tell you, to me, I'm frustrated by this whole issue because I keep hearing, differing variants on it. So just bear with me if you don't mind until the end of this break, and then maybe you can help straighten me and our listeners out as to whether or not we should just try to defeat this thing lock, stock, and barrel, or move forward and try to get it amended.
Okay.
Stick with me for a minute, folks. We'll be back in just a moment. You're listening to America's Voice Now.
Fox News Radio. I'm Chris Foster. Copies of President Obama's budget plan dropped off in Congress this morning.
Budget proposals are little more than wish lists, not expected to become law. The president's plan will include cuts to Medicare by reducing cost of living adjustments. That is not supported by all Democrats, but could be used as a concession to try to get Republicans to accept revenue increases.
Fox News Radio's Jared Halpern at the Capitol, watching and waiting for another missile test by North Korea.
North Korea has made very clear that it will launch a missile, perhaps today, perhaps over the next couple of days. The concern, though, is that this missile is untested and it could malfunction. Combine that with the fact that we're dealing with a very unpredictable regime. Frankly, no one quite knows what will happen.
Sky News correspondent Mark Stone in Seoul, South Korea. Fox News. We report, you decide.
Thanks to our friends over at Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance. You can reach Brian down there at 870-492-4030. It's located a half mile east of Walmart on 3225 Route 62, Mountain Home. My dear friend Mary over at Chantilly's Artisan Bakery, the best damn bakery in 100 miles. She's located at number 2 Evans Arcade, and you can call her at 255-2253. My friends over at Pizza Hut on Porter Wagoner Boulevard. They have an outstanding lunch opportunity. You can, from 11 till 2, and you can have salad and pizza, something tasty and something good for you. Our friends Bill Stone over at Stone Construction at 293-0116. If you're considering doing any kind of remodeling, new or custom construction and or light commercial, give Bill a call and let him bid on your next project. Our friends batteries at the battery station at 303 Washington Avenue, 417-257-7799. They can be found at thebatterystation.com. Our friends over at West Plains Pawn and Gun, an outstanding opportunity with 400 firearms under glass. You can reach them at 417-256-3000, and they are located at westplainspawn.com. Located physically at Highway 160, about a mile past Walmart on the right-hand side. And finally, the sponsor of our phone lines, Wits End Classic Barbershop, located on the square in West Plains. Best haircut you can get for $10, and a nice young man as well. Please visit and support our sponsors.
Everybody knows Crossroads Convenience has the coldest beer in town, but did you also know they have U-Haul rentals available 7 days a week? The best hot beverage selection of coffee and cappuccinos to help keep your body warm during these colder Ozark days and nights. That's Crossroads Convenience in West Plains.
If you missed America's Voice Now at 8 a.m. this morning, catch a repeat of America's Voice Now with your host, Michael Evans, at 8 p.m. every night, Monday through Friday, right here on 107.1, the Ozark's best news talk radio network.
Weather sponsorships are now available on News Talk 107.1 The Point. Get more information, email info@diamondmediaradio.com for complete details.
From the Point Weather Center for this morning, mostly cloudy skies, showers and thunderstorms through the day today. Some of these storms could be heavy and potentially severe. The high 74 degrees. Mostly cloudy tonight with some showers and heavy thunderstorms, low 44. Cloudy and cooler with showers Thursday, high 54. I'm staff meteorologist Jim Minaldi. For more information, visit my1071thepoint.com.
Howell County Bank branch of Bank at Thayer, locally owned and operated since 1900. It's not what they do, it's how they do it. Roger Lennon, president of Howell County Bank. Is it true that banks don't have money to lend?
And that's just not true. All the area banks have money to loan. We certainly do, and it's just a case of lack of confidence right now. We certainly have money to loan and welcome customers to come in and apply.
At Howell County Bank, it truly is not what they do, but how they do it. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Okay, so let's just try to evaluate this issue here with this HJR 7 and HJR 11. My concern and Senate Bill Joint Resolution 22. Right. My concern with this is that no matter what kind of language we get inserted into this bill, I actually truly believe that what they will do is they'll manipulate that language through the courts, through definitions, not definitions, but definitions, that the court will later on come up with that say, well, this means that, and, you know, it doesn't really mean it means something completely different. We've seen it so many times before that these politicians couch their goals in language that leaves wide open, either leaves it wide open for interpretation, which they then go to the courts for, which are completely either biased or bought out or are judicial activists.
Right.
Or they then write a definition later on and apply that to the legislation to say, well, this definition, which has no correlation to reality at all, is the new definition for this term. Mm-hmm. And at that point, no matter what kind of language and protections we get put into this thing, we're beaten. And my concern with this is that even if we have a statement in here that says nothing would prohibit a farmer the right to engage in direct commerce with the consumer, frankly, I mean, I don't even know why we have to write a law that says the obvious. I mean, what would prohibit us from, I mean, I get it. They want everything to go through a broker and a middleman, kind of like the federal firearms regulation that says if you want to buy a gun, you got to go to a dealer and you got to get a background check done and all that kind of thing. It's the same idea that all food has to be funneled through approved channels, which means that any food that's not approved by the channel doesn't make it to the marketplace. And that way they can eliminate small farmers who want to be able to trade at, farmers markets and in the community and things like that. But, I would rather see a blatant constitutional amendment that just says, period, nothing can ever prohibit or bar a farmer from dealing direct with the consumer. And the hell with this Monsanto, protection nonsense. Because the truth is, I suspect, and I could be wrong here, but I suspect that the real goal of all of this is to get this codified into language and into law, and then later on reinterpret the language to mean something that it didn't mean before. I mean, that's what lawyers do. They're slippery. And
most of the time,
almost invariably, whenever you deal with a lawyer or a politician or a legislator, you go home and you start thinking about the conversation you just had, and you feel like you want to take a rape shower and wash the snake oil off of you. And the simple truth is that we are in a position where we just cannot trust them anymore. And when you start mucking around with the state constitution, Jefferson said it best when his comment was, Forget the idea of righteousness in men. Instead, let's bind men down with the chains of a constitution. And once we allow that chink in the armor, once we take that particular plate off over the breastplate, we've allowed a danger zone in our constitution. And then they can pry it wide open with a crowbar and shove anything they want through there.
Right.
That's my fear.
Well, okay, Michael, on this language, there's been a lot of communication and some indication that they were possibly open to inserting direct trade language, so farmers would not be prohibited from selling directly to consumers.
But they're not prohibited now, are they?
No, we are prohibited in a large way. A lot of things are regulated. For instance, I cannot butcher an animal here and sell you that meat, Mike.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Now, they just bandied about behind the scenes with some individuals on direct trade language, and there was hope that it could be inserted, but it is not going to be inserted. What I'm looking at right now is the absolute most up-to-date Senate substitute language, and there is not a word in here about direct trade. Not a word.
So let's make sure that we're clear for the benefit of our audience, because what I don't want is them to feel confused. I either want to see this, and the goal of this is either to change this language to support it so that it protects us, or let's just kill the whole damn thing. And right now, frankly, I'm voting for the kill the whole thing.
It needs to die. Now, here's the other thing. It would be really nice if we could get direct trade language, but it's not going to happen simply because of the monetary side of Monsanto, the corn growers, the soybean growers, and even, other organizations like Farm Bureau. They do some good things, and then they do a lot of bad things.
But these farm organizations that you're talking about, they are actually for this, even though it's against the small farmer's best interest, because the association says, well, if you're not a part of us, we don't even want you around. We want to basically eliminate our competition. So it's almost like these big non-governmental organizations that get together every time. It's almost like the mantra of whatever they want, I don't want.
Well, right. This will not in any way, and it is not designed to, nor intended to protect small family farmers or diversified agriculture in any way, shape, or form. And they will not allow it to be amended to actually protect small family farms that are diversified. This is designed to support agricultural giants and their continued control of the marketplace and farming. And that's it.
Right.
And that's what it's going to do if it gets passed, so it needs to die, period. This issue of putting in a language to allow for local control. Well, we would have to implement planning and zoning to have that happen. Do we really want to do that? I don't think so.
That's Agenda 21 got written large.
Yeah,
right?
All over it, So this is not something that we can win at for truth, justice, and the American way, and economic freedom and all of that. We cannot put more money in their coffers than can Monsanto and the corn growers and the soy growers.
Right.
We cannot do it.
Sure.
So this is a bought and paid for piece of legislation.
Just like Roy Blunt was bought and paid for by Monsanto to push it through on a federal level.
Absolutely.
And that's the problem with all of these politicians. They come out and they tell you, well, this is for the consumer or the electorate's best interest. And the simple truth is that it's a flat out lie. And I'll tell you, I'm at the stage in my life where I no longer believe if you're a politician and your mouth is open, you're lying. If you tell me it's daylight, I'm going to go to the window and pull back the shade and verify.
Right.
Because
exactly.
At this stage in the game, I can't trust any of them, even though they may sound good on their face. There's always this hidden agenda that is always against the best interest, and it's almost exclusive. In other words, there's so few exceptions to the rule in this regard that you can no longer trust any of them.
Pretty much.
So I think the simple rule should be defeat it, period, and let's just get away from the whole mess.
It absolutely needs to be defeated, and here's the problem. Some of these senators who were against the original language thought that it all got fixed by dropping the adjectives and adding the capacity for people to implement planning and zoning in their counties to control the spread of, the CAFOs, okay? But it didn't get fixed. They're just probably getting tired, like a lot of us are, of dealing with, these continual language changes, and they're dealing with a great number of issues, not simply this one, okay?
Well, I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna just drag this thing to its culmination. Okay. I'm gonna give out Mike Cunningham's phone number. And I want everybody within the sound of my voice today, and Doreen's voice, I want you to pick up the telephone and call this number. It's 573-751-1882. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have two statements that you're going to make. And we're going to make this really simple for everybody out there. I want you to vote, Mr. Cunningham, I want you to vote yes on the Second Amendment Preservation Act. By the way, it just passed in Kansas. So what is Missouri waiting for? And two, I want you to vote no on the Monsanto Preservation Act, or what are they actually calling that bill? It's Senate Joint Resolution 22, SJR22.
They're calling it a right to farm.
Okay, so the answer is no on right to farm Resolution 22.
Right.
Okay, let's make this really easy, because what I don't want is people confused about the issue. And frankly, I'm at the stage, and I believe that this is probably the most appropriate resolution. If we have any, in other words, if we have any doubt about the true motive of a bill, just defeat it. End of argument.
Yep.
And this thing is fraught with so much hidden agenda language and hidden agenda manipulation that there's no way that this thing can turn out well for us.
Right.
So,
So
okay.
yes on the Second Amendment Preservation Act, and no on the quote-unquote right to farm.
Right. Right to farm is what they're referring to it as.
Mm-hmm. And that's 751-1882. 573-751-1882 for Cunningham.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that's the right mantra to take is let's just defeat this thing, because frankly at this point and Mike Cunningham has stated that he's for this. Is that not correct?
That's what I have heard.
Okay,
yes.
So our job today, folks, is change his mind right now, right here, while you've got the opportunity to get your bullhorn on. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We'll return in just a moment. This is America's Voice Now. You're listening to Mike Evans, and we have our guest Doreen Hannes on with us this morning. We'll be back in just a moment.
If you're looking for a new or used pistol, shotgun, or rifle, West Plains Pawn & Gun has over 450 firearms in stock. All your favorite models like Beretta, Glock, Smith & Wesson, Kimber, and many, many more. West Plains Pawn & Gun is also a Class 3 arms dealer, so if they don't have it on the shelf, West Plains Pawn & Gun can order it for you. Even those hard-to-get guns. West Plains Pawn & Gun, 1713 U.S. Highway 160 West in West Plains, or online at westplainspawn.com.
There's one man on this earth who really, truly gets it.
By the way, what the hell is he doing in the Middle East? Making a complete ass out of himself. What is the point of this visit? To say he visited? It's an embarrassment. He goes into these places, he's a cult figure in the United States, and so he goes to these places and he figures he's gonna talk these people into admiring him and whatever comes out of his mouth. No, it only works that way here.
Mark Levin is on the radio.
Weeknights 5 to 8 on the Ozarks Best News Talk.
It's a call and make your voice heard on the biggest issues making headlines today, or on absolutely anything in your head. Every call I get goes on the air totally unscreened. It's unpredictable and uncensored, and you'll never know what to expect. Anything can and will happen on the next Alan Colmes Show.
And that's who you can catch every weeknight, 9 till midnight. The Alan Colmes Show on the Ozarks Best News Talk, 107.1 The Point, Monday through Friday. The further we reach out, the closer we all become. Hey, it's Nate Cooper here with the Ozarks Best News Talk 107.1 The Point. I invite you to join us Sunday mornings. The program is a combination of local and national known speakers. So I encourage you to do two things. Listen in on Sunday mornings from 8 until noon and find out how you can become a sponsor of one of the programs. Just call our offices at 255-0427. Beyond the Point, Sundays on the Ozarks Best News Talk 107.1.
So, our focus here for Wake Up Wednesday, folks, is going to be very simple, and we're going to simplify this for you. Here's the long and the short of it. You're going to pick up the phone today, and you're going to call Mike Cunningham's office. He's the senator that covers this district. His phone number is 573-751-1882. And you're going to have basically two statements, and here's what they are. I'm a registered voter in your district. I am telling you now that I expect and demand that you vote yes on the Second Amendment Preservation Act. The Second Amendment Preservation Act is not only a need, it is a requirement for our state to move forward independently and with sovereignty. And the second issue is I want a no vote on the right to farm, your Senate Resolution number 22. So write that down, people. It's Senate Resolution 22, called the Right to Farm, and the answer is definitively no. We're expecting Mike Cunningham to vote no on that. And here's the deal. If he's already saying he's behind this, we are going to need an avalanche of telephone calls today to make sure that he understands that that is not an acceptable vote for him. Okay? You have to make it very, very clear to his office that we will not accept anything less than the correct vote representing us as the voters and the electorate in his district. And so Senate Resolution 22 is a no. The right to farm, it's a no. The only thing he's going to vote yes on, and we're not asking it, we're demanding it, is the Second Amendment Preservation Act. And if you're not familiar with Second Amendment Preservation Act, I'm going to make it clear what it is, because that is the one that basically says any federal firearms law is null and void on its face. Go ahead, Doreen.
Well, the issue is he needs to do the right thing. He needs to work for us, and he needs to protect our rights. That's the duty of all elected representatives.
You know what sucks is that we actually have to tell these people that.
Well, unfortunately, we've got the best government money can buy, and it doesn't exist solely at the federal level. It exists at the state level as well. So, we've got a lot of money behind the scenes. We've got a lot of power pulls behind the scenes. We've got a lot of conversation. They try to dust stuff up to make people think that they're going to change something that's bad into something that's good. And 99% of the time, if it's bad when it comes out of the gate, it's staying that way.
Right, and it's only going to get worse.
Yes.
Because then they take it, like the health care law, which started out to be 2,000 pages and is now some 18,000 pages worth of regulations that literally stands over 6 feet tall.
Right.
And by the way, they're only through the first 2 tranches of this thing, which has like 5 sections to it. So I mean, you're going to end up with a mountain of paper that is going to literally be 30 feet tall of regulations that no one will be able to understand. And that's the same danger that we're running into here with this Senate Joint Resolution 22, Right to Farm.
Yes, absolutely. And, the other thing is it's forever guaranteed that you have a right to engage in farming and ranching practices. They're cloning meat in Petri dishes and calling it farming, Michael.
Right.
That is not farming. And so people have this, idea about a nice little farm where the farmer wakes up and the sun's coming up and the chickens are crowing, but that is not what they're protecting here.
Right. The problem with this is that all they've got to do in order to make this thing work for Monsanto's benefit is say farming includes the following things.
Right.
Case closed. We're done. We're finished. It doesn't matter what kind of constitutional protections were put in place here. We're finished and we're done and it's over.
Yes. So, it's better to not do anything than to do the wrong thing. And, I'm all for economic freedom. I'm all for independent economic freedom, not for, okay, you can do this because I'm going to give you a license and you're going to do it the way that the agency says you're going to do it. That is not freedom.
Right.
That's control. And that's what we've got in agriculture, and this will give us more of it.
Sure.
So, it's very clear. I mean, both of these bills are actually very clear. The Second Amendment Preservation Act is an absolute gotta have it, and this bill is an absolute don't have to have it.
Right. Well, and Kansas just passed it. And Kansas actually submitted it after we did. So what the hell is our House and Senate and Assembly waiting for? I'll tell you what the problem is. There's no real big money behind it. This Monsanto thing that Jason Smith put forth here is sliding through like greased grass through a goose because of all the money associated to it. But when you talk about the Second Amendment Preservation Act, these guys are dragging their feet like they got nails in their heels.
Yes.
And frankly, I'm sick of it. We've got a caller on the line. Let's just find it. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Hi. I just wanted to let you guys know that I called. I just got off the phone with Mike Cunningham's office. They told me they would take my comment into consideration about both bills, and stuff. She said they were receiving a lot of phone calls regarding this. However, I got through the first time. Tells me there's not a whole lot of line congestion there.
I got you. Well, thank you very much for that update. I appreciate it. So essentially, that caller was just telling us, folks, that she just got off the phone with Cunningham's office, and essentially that Cunningham's office said that they would take her statement under advisement. I don't care what they say to you. I'm telling you to lock his phone system down today until they capitulate and say, that's right, the Senate. And you can actually ask, what is the senator's position on this? Is he voting yes or a no at this point? And ask, demand an answer. And if they say, well, we don't really know, that's not acceptable because we need an answer. Right. And we need a public statement from him before the vote comes up as to where he's going to stand on this issue. The Second Amendment Preservation Act is an absolute requirement of him to vote yes on. If he will not do that, then what he needs to know is that we will do everything that we can to remove him from office at his next available election, and that we will block all of his other initiatives until such time as he turns around and does vote yes on the Second Amendment Preservation Act. Senate Bill 325, if they ask you. The other issue is Senate Joint Resolution 22, the right to farm. The answer is absolutely no. He must vote no a nay is required on that. And you should be asking, where does he stand on this bill at the present time? You know, that's the problem with these politicians. They vacillate back and forth. You know, if enough phone calls come in, though, they start to recognize that they are fighting, you know, the rising tide of the grassroots. And ladies and gentlemen, that is our obligation, to make sure that they know we're watching what they're doing. It's our obligation to hold their feet not only to, but in the fire when they betray our desires and our needs and our requirements. Right. That's what they're there for, to represent us. Nothing more, nothing less. And every representation should be a protection for us, not a way to
control us.
Well,
right.
Not
or
just that, but
us.
to be diminutive of our rights, right? If you are going to sit there and vote for things that actually rescind our constitutional and God-given and nature-given rights, then we don't really need you there.
That's the way that I see it. And I mean, every politician, when they do the right thing, you say, thank you, you did the right thing, good job. When they do the wrong thing, you smack them on the head. They do the right thing, you pat them on the back.
Kudos and a pat on the back when they've done the right thing. So here's the deal. If he votes yes on the Second Amendment Preservation Act, you should be following today's phone call up when this gets passed with a kudos, thank you very much for doing the right thing on the Second Amendment Preservation Act. When he votes no on the Right to Farm, Senate Resolution 22, then you should be calling him up and saying the same thing. If he doesn't do what we want him to do, then it's our job to call him up and say to him, we know that you betrayed us, and we will not forget it.
Yeah, we will not rest.
We will not rest.
Very simple. You know, and one issue, and I think that the people in this district need to be cognizant of it, is when Senator Cunningham was in the House, he was the sponsor of the Monsanto RGBH bill, the pro-Monsanto RGBH bill. And what that bill was to prohibit the labeling of milk as being hormone-free, because Monsanto at the time had not yet sold their patent on this hormone injection thing. And so he's got a little bit of history on this right to farm issue. And we need to make sure that he gets a very clear message that, one, we are not for Monsanto, and we will not be for him if he is.
I tell you, we are at a point where if we don't, get a grasp on this and start to take our role seriously as voters and as constituents, and force these politicians to do what we want, they are going to just run over us like they are wearing, lead boots.
Well, like they have been doing, actually, and now we have the opportunity to stand and to hold them accountable and to do so collectively. So, like, if everybody takes this idea of, 10-minute citizen, every day I'm going to invest 10 minutes in advocating for what is right and what is proper at the state and at the local level, we could be so much better off in a very short time, because holding them accountable, pulling them out into the light, making them take a stand for our freedom is going to benefit each and every one of us and our children.
And that is the absolute truth. Yeah. Well, listen, thank you very much, Doreen. I appreciate you joining with us this morning and really putting some clarity and shedding some light on this. You're always welcome, and your input is so valuable, and I think our listenership really grasps and understands the context of things as you bring them out. So thank you so much for your participation today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to everyone for listening.
You're welcome. Okay, folks, this is the wrap for the show. You're listening to America's Voice Now. You can find us at americasvoicenow.org and facebook.com/America's Voice Now and youtube.com/America's Voice Now. We'll see you tomorrow morning bright and early.
Ladies and gentlemen,
this is KBMV Birch Tree is the Ozarks' best news talk, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Fox News Radio, I'm Dave Anthony. It's not light reading. Boxes of books full of numbers have arrived on Capitol Hill. President Obama's 2014